Right, it's the city's job to make sure you don't get cholera or typhoid, something that's going to kill you in 2 weeks. It's your job to make sure that you don't get a long-term degenerative disease like cancer because of the chemicals in your water. Yeah. The city can't afford to treat every drop of water to that level. You and your house, it's your responsibility. You're not going to get sick and die in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's absolutely consistent with our message, which is to take control of your health.
Right.
You're not going to. I mean, most of us are relying on our city to help us take control of our health, but as you said, all they're doing is making sure that we're not getting an acute infectious illness and dying from that, or wind up in the hospital. And they do a pretty good job with that. I mean, that's not an insignificant issue. I mean, people die. A huge cause of death all over the world is dying from infectious diarrhea.
Yeah, and
I mean, there's tens of, if not hundreds of thousands of people die every day from that issue.
There sure are. And here's something else to consider. Look, when the EPA tells us there's a safe level of a contaminant, I disagree there's any safe level of herbicide or pesticide. But what the EPA is basing that on is known health effects and economic feasibility for us to implement that standard nationwide. Mm-hmm. And it would cost trillions and trillions of dollars to provide lead-free water to every house, which is what we know everybody needs. Yet that at a half a part per billion of lead, we're doing damage. Mm-hmm. Well, to put in perspective what these legal limits tell us, we took a single dose of the legal limit of the herbicide atrazine and gave it to frogs. And the male frogs started to grow ovaries on their testes after a single dose of the legal limit of atrazine in our water. It's a very big problem. To quote the Associated Press, our frogs in this country are being chemically castrated by atrazine, and we're losing our male population of frogs. The only thing that's really keeping the frog population afloat right now is that as these male frogs grow ovaries on their testes, there's a window before they totally feminize that they're able to reproduce with themselves. And it's not just the amphibians. We see the same problem in the Potomac River. They started pulling bass out, and 70% of the largemouth bass and 33% of the smallmouth bass had ovaries growing on their testes. Mm-hmm. Is this a new thing, or is this just normal in nature? They went to the Smithsonian and a few other museums and grabbed some fish out of formaldehyde from the late 1800s, early 1900s to see if they could find this condition. It wasn't there. Yeah. This is a new problem that we're wreaking on ourselves, and we need to do something about it.
We talked about it earlier, these xenoestrogens. So clearly the fish are screaming at us. These young girls developing sexual maturity at 7 years old are another screaming factor. So really just telling us that we have to take control of our health. Don't rely on the government. They're not going to do it for you. You've got to do it. You've got to find a solution to make sure that you and your family have a high-quality water source that's free of these contaminants. So we have another question here as to your recommendations for a fridge or shower filter. We've kind of discussed the shower filters extensively, but I mean, many people do fill their glass or their glass with water from the fridge for a good reason, as I kind of alluded to earlier. It's cold, and cold water is structured water, and it satisfies you more. Cold water is going to quench that thirst a lot better than room temperature water in the summer.
That's right.
No question. So makes a good choice. What I personally do is use whatever, in my case now it's a tankless RO filter, and now it's a combination whole house carbon tankless RO filter, and put that in the fridge. And I even though my fridge has a spout for water, I only use that for ice, which is still a challenge because the ice is not clean, but now it's better.
Now, so my house, I have the same thing, refrigerator with the ice and the water in the door.
Right.
And I can't drink the water out of the door. I use the ice because that water circles through there a lot faster, but the water in the door, that's sitting in a plastic tube curled up underneath your vegetable drawer. That's how they keep it cold. The water comes in the back and it's sitting in a plastic tube in there. So I don't ever recommend, even if their refrigerator comes with a filter or you put one on the back.
So the best, assuming you had the best filter in the world that gave you the highest quality water possible, it's equivalent to mountain stream water.
Yep.
The problem is sitting in that plastic, and you're going to acquire those phthalates and BPAs. So avoid it like the plague. You may even want to talk to a contractor or a plumber and kind of block it off so you can't get any water out of there.
I wouldn't go that far, but it's certainly not the highest quality water possible. The best quality water you can give yourself is water that was filtered the second before it was drunk.
Yeah.
And if you want to have it cold, the best way to do that is to fill it from your point-of-use filter and put it into your refrigerator. Yeah. Now, when you look at the expense of installing a refrigerator filter, usually it's probably about the same to get the plumber out there as it would cost to put your whole house filter in. And when you look at the long-term cost and the benefits of using the whole house filter versus a shower filter and an ice maker filter, you're better off with the whole home unit.
Yeah, there's just it's kind of a brain dead easy solution.
Right.
And what I found it useful in my own circumstances. I went to Costco and they had these 2.5-gallon glass containers, really inexpensive.
Yeah.
And I just bought one of those and fill it up, and this way it's a weekly chore to fill up that water container with the.
At my house, we
water.
use a 3-gallon one that we got from Whole Foods, and we got
And it fits in the fridge.
no, I got a Hamilton Beach chiller and heater because my wife really loves to make her tea. I got one of those Hamilton Beach chillers that sits on my countertop, and I fill that about every 2 or 3 days.
Okay, it's ceramic or?
It's the bottle's glass.
Okay, glass. Okay.
So, and I know the bottle's made in Mexico. That's all I can tell you about. But I got it at Whole Foods.
Okay.
Again, you guys are
So
going
you
to hear
gotta-
us talk about glass a lot because it doesn't
It's
have
the
the
best.
synthetic
Yeah.
stuff in it.
Yeah, water will dissolve some of the glass. I mean, it's not much, but some. But it's sand, so it's not going to. It's inert. It's not going to cause
Right.
a problem.
Dirt don't hurt.
Okay, we have a question from Susie from Jacksonville,
Okay.
and she wanted to know what type of filtration process is necessary if you have a well. What type of filter you recommend? And we actually kind of extensively discussed this, but maybe you can give the highlights.
Well, Susie, water all over the country is different, and I want you to know that in this day and age, the days of drilling holes in the ground and pulling up pure water are pretty much over in this country. We use to the tunes of hundreds of millions of tons of herbicides and pesticides in this country every single year. Those make it to the water supply. The first thing I want anybody to do that is on a well, a private well, is go get your water tested. There's a couple ways you can do this. You can go down to your local health department. They're going to have you typically get 2 glass bottles and 2 plastic bottles because the plastic reacts with some
Yeah,
of the
but let me
contaminants.
caution you there, and you might want to revise that recommendation, because I did this, and for a fee of $20, our health department would test for nitrates and coliform bacteria, and that was it.
That's it.
That's the only thing they did. That's all of Cook County. I mean, it's so that's a significant population. That's 10 million people.
Right. So you obviously you want to on the menu you want to check off the main things you want to look for are bacteria because you're on a well, you don't have chlorine, and pathogenic bacteria is the first thing that's going to do you in. Okay. So you want a bacteria test. If they find bacteria, you need ultraviolet or you need to chlorinate. I'm a big proponent of ultraviolet light. It doesn't add anything negative to the water. It photodegrades some compounds, whereas chlorine, all it does is create triomethanes and kill the stuff. Ultraviolet's a better way to go. It's probably a little bit more expensive because it does require electricity, but I think it's more effective and it has much smaller side effects. You're not handling the light bulb. It's not going to make you sick. Whereas you're handling the chlorine tablets, you're inhaling that chlorine gas. Chlorine is a worst case scenario. If you're poor, don't be afraid to use it because it is better than typhoid. So they're going to test for bacteria. You want them to test for metals. You want them to test for herbicides and pesticides. Those are the things that are most likely to be down there. Arsenic is a big one.
Although one of the things you told me when I did my well test, it was that it's unlikely for most wells to have herbicides and pesticides.
No, they're more likely than the city to have herbicides and pesticides.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Now,
Okay,
it depends
mixed
on
up.
the depth of your well.
Okay.
If you've got a 20-foot deep well, chances are
sorry.
you've got everything that was on the
Right,
road.
right.
If you've got a 900-foot deep well, chances are you've got nothing from the road.
Okay.
You are one of those few people that probably has pure water coming out of the ground. It takes a long time for those contaminants to travel 900 feet
Yeah,
through
because
rock.
my water was very clean except some bacteria and iron. That was about it.
Right, so, which is good. Sometimes you're going to find the presence of bacteria. That's not good.
Yeah.
But what you did find out is that you haven't been showering in herbicides and pesticides.
Right.
So it is also going to give you a little bit of peace of mind. So after you get your test from your local health department, again, it's going to be $20 to $80. I do suggest you go for a little bit more comprehensive test than just bacteria and nitrates.
Yeah, for the little, I mean, it's another $100 or so. You're going to really test the whole gamut of things that could be in there. Most health departments will not. I mean, the government organizations, and most governments are strapped for funds nowadays. And
That's right.
They are not going to be going above and beyond what they have to. So you're going to get the bare butt minimum. So you really want to do an objective, third-party, commercial laboratory that will do a really
Right.
comprehensive job.
And a lot of you probably forgot, but if you bought your house and it was on a well, the banks typically, before they'll give you a mortgage, require a water test. They want to make sure you're not going to die before you pay off your loan. So they won't let you move in until the water's potable. So at least you've had a bacteria test done when you moved in if you got a mortgage, in most cases. So you can sometimes go back to that test. I don't recommend that. Yeah, it's free because you already have it, but water tables change, and a lot of stuff can happen in a couple of years. So if your local health department is too expensive or not comprehensive enough on the test, I recommend national testing laboratories. Theirs takes a little bit longer. You have to call them. They send you a kit. You take your samples. You mail it off to them.
But it's easy.
And how long did it take you? About 2 weeks?
2 weeks, yeah. 2 weeks to have the results. Very comprehensive, very thorough.
Dinoseb, 2,4-D. I mean, they test for all the herbicides and pesticides. Or not all of them, I say, but
Most
at least
of
the
them.
prevalent
All
ones.
the major ones, right?
Right. The ones that we're using enormous amounts of in the society. So once you've got your test, you know what you need, and then you can go pick the right product. Because when you're building a well water system, you can go anywhere from $1,000 all the way up to $30,000 to take out everything that you want to.
Right. Yeah. So, but you need, that's the first part of the equation, and actually, Houston would not design a system for me without that information, because you don't know until what's in your water.
There's no magic bullet.
But I just wanted to mention the point that this is typically an individualized. If you have a well, you're going to have to analyze your water, but then you have to customize a filtration system to meet your needs. So I mean, many of them may follow the same pattern, but you still need to know what it is for you. So there's not like, oh, it's like model A, B, or C. You really have to have a consultation with someone who understands this.
Not quite consultation. We've gotten it down to where there's enough things that are common that we address. So our standard well water system is going to be good for 90-95% of the households out there. Okay. Where we start to run into problems is when you find people that have perchlorate in their water. It's a rocket fuel derivative. It's pretty much near every single military base and airport in the country. Particularly if you live anywhere in Southern California, you're liable to have perchlorate in your water. So the ways to treat for perchlorate are biologically activated carbon, which is a bacteria-impregnated carbon that'll go eat the perchlorate, and then
What's the bacteria?
I'm not sure what type of bacteria it is, but the metabolite that it creates can be filtered, because perchlorate's really hard to get out of the water. I mean, it's very difficult. I've heard this.
A novel filtering system. I didn't realize that's how they did it.
I've heard 50% with RO is what you can expect for perchlorate. So now we use a method. We were actually making a filter for the Bronx Zoo to take care of a phosphate problem that was killing their amphibians coming out of the New York tap water, because they used so much organophosphate there because New York City has problems with their lead content. Well, that obviously wasn't good for the little frogs. And what we found is the same filter media that we're using to take out phosphates will also address perchlorate. It's extremely expensive though. So I don't want to give you a perchlorate filter if you don't have perchlorate in your water.
No reason for that.
Right. Same
it's unnecessary overkill.
Right. Same with arsenic. You're going to find arsenic in a lot of well water, particularly when you get into the Rocky Mountains. You're almost guaranteed to have uranium or arsenic or both in your water. And the good news is the same filter that takes out uranium will also take out arsenic, but it's expensive. And whereas my standard whole house filter is going to run you about $1,200-$1,300, just the arsenic portion of the filter is going to run you about $2,000 every 3 or 4 years. So obviously, if you don't have arsenic in your water, you don't need to do that. I mean, there's no magic bullet in water filtration. There is no system out there that will take out everything. Or it's as big as this counter and it'll only last for 1 gallon. Right. So it's not cost effective to try and remove everything. That's why that water quality analysis is so crucial. So if you're looking on the whole house filter section of your website, you're going to see all the different products to address it. And pretty much a customer can read their own water quality report and go to your chart and figure out which system they can build for themselves. And of course, they can call in and get a consultation, and we'll make sure we're getting them the right product.
The other component of that too is just a variable that one needs to consider is the size of your home.
Correct.
So if you have 3.5 bedroom home or more, 3,200, 3,500 square feet, you're going to want to get 2 systems in one. And it may sound like a lot of extra money initially, but essentially it's going to, you'll be able to go twice as long.
Right.
Because you're going to still filter the same amount of water. So instead of filtering 300,000, you'll filter 600,000 gallons of water.
Right, and that's 3.5 bathrooms, not bedrooms.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's right. But no, any larger, and if there's only one person in the house, if you had a 5-bedroom or a 5-bathroom house, excuse me, now you got me doing it. If you had a 5-bathroom house, you'd be fine with just the one system by yourself. You're not going to exceed that 8 gallon per minute flow rate. It's when you have your guests over, and so just keep in mind.
You have 3 people showering at the same time.
Right, you're never going to run out of water. It's just that your shower may run a little bit slower if you don't get the second system.
Yeah, if you're sensitive to water pressure, then you're certainly going to want to err on the side of having another system.
Particularly if you're already starting with low water pressure. There's some gray area there. I mean, there's plenty of houses out there with 4 bathrooms and 4 kids in them that are doing just fine with 1 unit.
Okay.
but they start with good high water pressure. So that's something that it's going to cost you more if you put the first one in and then have to have the plumber come back to do the second one because you didn't have enough water pressure. So at least consider that factor, that you're going to pay double the plumbing costs if you guess wrong.